Friday on Daily Delivery. I'm Michael Rand. Glad to be back for another day. Hope you guys are all having a great day out there, getting ready for the weekend and everything that entails. State Fair coming up next week. So we do know that summer is trickling towards the end, but still a lot of time left to enjoy everything. We'll be doing some State Fair appearances in the next couple of weeks, probably a live Access Vikings recording. We'll get you those specifics here next week sometime. So listen up for that and come see all of the great Star Tribune writers, personalities out at the State Fair starting August 22nd, next Thursday. Yep, it is coming. First, though, we got a show today. Randy Johnson from the Star Tribune joins me here in just a little bit to talk Gopher football. We're going to go game by game on the Gopher football schedule. Starts a little less than 2 weeks from now. A lot of toss-ups, and that's what we kind of got into on the show. A lot of games where, 50%, 40%, 60% kind of chance to win, you would think. Those games will determine the success of this season and, ultimately the trajectory that this team is headed on. Some Timberwolves and Lynx thoughts at the end of the show. Wolves released their schedule. A lot of national TV games. Lynx back in action Thursday. Got a win over the Mystics. So we'll get to that at the end of the show. First, though, what did I miss? Some Vikings and Twins thoughts in the context of some reader submissions.
Time to check my social media, yeah. To see who loves me online. Hashtag blessed life.
First, the Vikings from Shane. Just a different way to think about the story of the week, which is J.J. McCarthy lost for the season, torn meniscus. You think about the arc of this week, Saturday to now, Saturday to Friday. Saturday makes his debut for the Vikings at U.S. Bank Stadium, the only preseason game this year at U.S. Bank Stadium. Throws an interception on his third pass, but then throws 2 touchdown passes at the start of the third quarter. Everybody's excited. You can see the talent. You can see kind of the future of what this could be. I'm excited. I write about how his confidence, you can see his confidence, you can see his kind of gunslinger mentality to a certain degree and how that is different to me than what we saw for so many years from Kirk Cousins. Not that Kirk Cousins wouldn't, make a tough throw, but that his default was always going to be go through my reads, make the safer throw, and that kind of came from a place of how he developed versus J.J. McCarthy, a 5-star recruit, a top 10 pick, how he developed into the league. So wrote about that. Everybody's excited about J.J. McCarthy. I wrote about that Monday morning. By Monday night, we find out, J.J. McCarthy's not at practice. Sore knee. Tuesday, find out it's a torn meniscus. Wednesday, we find out for the season. Sucks the air out of things for right now. Not that it changed a whole lot of how they were going to play, at least early on this year. We've talked about that, right? Like J.J. McCarthy was not going to be the week 1 starter, probably. It was going to be Sam Darnold, and Sam Darnold's going to play the majority of this season, or at least a good part of this season, no matter what, because they wanted to bring McCarthy along slowly, make sure he was processing everything the right way, building up to be the quarterback that they wanted him to be ultimately. So, doesn't affect a lot of the here and now, but it does. It does affect how people feel about this season, does affect 2025 to a certain degree, because now you don't know exactly what you've got in J.J. McCarthy going into next year. You kind of will. You're going to have, he's going to be able to do a lot of stuff after he's kind of recovered a little bit. He'll be able to kind of get those mental reps. I'm sure they'll be in a place by, next summer where they're feeling like they know what they have in McCarthy, but not the same as if he had an entire season worth of reps, at least in practice. So they lose some of that. We've talked about that. Ben Gessing and I talked about that on the bonus edition of this show earlier this week. Talked about it on Access Vikings, like a lot of stuff going on with that right now. But one thing I didn't really kind of connect the dots on, and Shane, emailer Shane, connected the dots for me. And a lot of Vikings fans, blaming a curse, blaming themselves even, like Shane, for the injury to JJ McCarthy, says, after listening to some Daily Deliveries and Access Vikings podcasts, I figure I should fess up. I normally don't believe in jinxes or bad vibes, but I thought I'd share. My 3 siblings and I were at a Vikings game Saturday, and were very excited about JJ's performance and what we had witnessed. During warm-ups, I reminded my siblings that the last Vikings game we went to together was the 2016 preseason. Teddy Bridgewater had an amazing game, generating a lot of excitement for the season. I looked up stats, and he was 12 of 16 for 161 yards and a touchdown. 2 days later was his major injury, effectively ending his Vikings career and taking a lot of optimism away from the season. I made the comment to my siblings toward the end of the game, hopefully JJ doesn't get hurt this week too. Thanks, Shane. Shane, you didn't do it. You didn't do anything. That is a tremendous, not in a good way, but that is a giant coincidence, and what a connection to make. And of course, you probably only make that connection because you are a Vikings fan, because you have been through a lot. You've seen a lot. If you are a Vikings fan, when someone performs well, you automatically think, what bad thing is going to happen next? And that did happen to JJ McCarthy. Not as bad, obviously, as the Teddy Bridgewater injury, right? Like, Teddy was 2 years into his career. They were thinking he was about to make a jump that year to be, not just a good kind of game manager kind of quarterback, but a quarterback who could maybe be kind of, getting into that franchise level guy. They were really excited about the progress he was making into year 3. And then boom, of course, the catastrophic knee injury. They make the Sam Bradford trade. Bradford plays reasonably well in 2016. You remember, they got off to a 5-0 start that year. So some of the optimism was restored, but all of the injuries on the offensive line kind of derail that season. They finished 8-8, missed the playoffs. The next year, Bradford's hurt. Case Keenum saves the day. They go 13-3. But, so it's kind of this chain of events. But yes, that year, that was the first game, as Shane points out. That was the first ever game, by the way, at U.S. Bank Stadium. That third preseason game that year. They opened on the road for those first 2 preseason games, and then that was the U.S. Bank Stadium opener that Teddy played so well. 2 days later, hurt. So I don't blame Shane, but I know where Vikings fans' heads are at right now. And I had another emailer this week, by the way, saying, why did they play McCarthy in that game? You should have put him under wraps until the regular season. He wasn't ready. He was ready. These things happen, right? This isn't any fault of playing somebody too soon, anything like that. Like, I don't blame anybody. It's just, it's an unfortunate thing. The injuries happen. And that was going to happen at some point. So I don't blame anybody for playing JJ McCarthy in the game. You got to know what you have in him. So I dismissed that one to a certain degree. Nobody wanted to see him get hurt, of course, but that could have happened at any time that they were going to put him out there. And you can't just keep him under wraps forever. That's not how this works. You don't just draft somebody and then they appreciate in value by sitting there and never playing. You got to play him. And it was just an unfortunate thing for JJ McCarthy and the Vikings. Now, emailer Bob had an interesting thought this morning about the Twins. He wrote to me this morning, actually it was late last night, saying, Twins got a nice win against the Rangers. Yes, they did, 3-2. Twins got a good start from Bailey Ober. This is me here, not Bob. Good start from Bailey Ober. Got the winning run across the plate in the top of the 9th, kind of manufacturing a run. Matt Wallner drew a walk, stole a base, advanced on a wild pitch, and then scored. Nice at-bat by Carlos Santana to get a fly ball, bring in Wallner. 3-2 is your final in that game. Felt like a big one for the Twins because, coming off a good homestand, 4-3, but a lot of injuries piling up. Byron Buxton went on the injured list on Thursday. Not the news they wanted. His sore hip putting him on the injured list. Carlos Correa still out. That's been over a month. Joe Ryan just went on the injured list. They're relying on a lot of rookies in the rotation. So you've got to win the vast majority of your Bailey Ober and Pablo Lopez starts down the stretch for however long. That's going to be, Lopez, Ober, and then a bunch of rookies. That's kind of what it is right now. That's what their rotation looks like with Festa, Simeon Woods Richardson, and now Zebby Matthews. Like, that's what it's going to look like for a while. You've got to win those starts by the guys who have been doing it all year, who have a little bit more of that experience, and they did last night. So that was important to get that win, to kind of forestall any kind of slide. It's going to be a tough road trip. Texas and then San Diego, both those teams playing pretty well lately, kind of had to have that one, or else the road trip could have gotten ugly. But Bob's larger point says, I just felt like they left a couple of nails unpounded in their last homestand. First, after sweeping the Guardians on Friday in the doubleheader, who were then mired in a significant losing streak. Parentheses, Bud Grant's words, doesn't matter who you play, but when you play him, came to mind. And I felt like another loss, especially on Sunday, may have shaken them. And then the last game versus Kansas City, where the Twins looked to me ready to celebrate a series win versus a sweep. I kind of felt the same way. Thought that a 4-3 homestand was really, a positive step. Felt like they did what they needed to do, kind of big picture wise. But yeah, when you win the first two games of both of those series, then against Cleveland you lose the last two, against Kansas City you lose the last one. Could have done more in that case. But he says, which brings me to my point, sorry for rambling. Just watch Cleveland come off a sweep of the Cubbies, and I thought I'd check interleague records. Cleveland is 18-14. Minnesota is 14-17. That's the 4-game division lead, almost, the Guardians have over the Twins. Now, I know their head-to-head is the more salient stat, but I thought about our last disheartening series with the Cubbies, and I figured I'd look it up. Thanks for your podcast. I listen every day, parentheses, I admit, to 1.5 speed. I can't do that, by the way. I can't listen to things on 1.5 speed. I've tried to listen to audiobooks that way. It just doesn't work for me. But bless you, Bob, for listening and for however you listen, that you can do it on 1.5 speed. And thanks for the good point. I hadn't really thought about interleague play. And again, I think he's right. Their record against the Guardians is still bad. I think it's 2-7 now after being 0-5 and then splitting that 4-game series. But if the Twins had taken more care of their interleague play schedule, they would be in better shape right now. They're still in good shape, 4 games out, really good shape in the wild card race, especially after taking 2 out of 3 from Kansas City. But yes, their recent series against the Cubs, where they lost that series, and now Cleveland sweeping the Cubs, that was a big swing right there, right? So that's something to pay attention to down the stretch. How much will that factor into the division race as well? So thanks to Shane and Bob for your letters, for your emails. Everybody keep them coming. Find me on Twitter, X, find me other places, email me. Love to get those reader responses, and leave a rating on the podcast. Last time I said that, I got a bunch of new ratings. I appreciate that. So if you guys get a chance to leave a rating on the podcast, I would appreciate that as well. Let's talk Gopher football today with Star Tribune Gophers football beat writer Randy Johnson. A little less than 2 weeks away now from the opener against North Carolina, August 29th at Huntington Bank Stadium, Randy, and still some things to sort out, still some things we don't know about this team and probably won't know until they start actually playing games. But a couple things I want to talk to you about today, A, are some injuries that have cropped up, and B, just kind of the season as a whole, maybe taking this game by game and then kind of sussing out where this is going to wind up. So first off, how are you? Are you enjoying fall camp?
Oh yeah, we don't get a lot of time to look at the team, but the few times we've had, it's they've had it at the stadium each time, which is nice. I always like being over there more so than at the on camp or the Athletes Village facility. It's just easier to park for one of the reasons, but you're in a stadium environment, and you get to see a little bit more of each drill and everything like that.
Couple pieces of news from Tuesday. Darius Taylor, excellent running back, made a big kind of cause for celebration this offseason when he stayed instead of leaving for potentially more NIL money, a big centerpiece of what they want to do, I'm sure, with their run-based attack this year. Hamstring injury Tuesday, and on top of that, Daniel Jackson, their excellent receiver, also dealing with some injuries. Without knowing exactly how serious those are, that's a concern, especially Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, you don't want your your top offensive weapons like that being limited during training camp, and especially with a couple weeks away from the opener. Yesterday PJ Fleck he didn't think it was serious with Darius Taylor, but you don't know until they do more tests and stuff, and I'm sure they have a better idea now, but it's we won't we won't hear from them until next week. So yeah, basically you want to come in healthy shape. Last year they went like a week before they lose Cody Lindenberg to a hamstring, and that set him back quite a bit. Daniel Jackson, he's been out for a couple weeks, like at least a week now. Just a couple of the practices that were open to the media. It sounds like he's rounding into shape. I think they're being extra careful with him, and him being a veteran where you might not need to have to push him so hard. You know what you have out of him.
Yeah. Taylor last year, he missed the last 5 games with a hamstring problem, and that was more than just him, but that was kind of coinciding with the dip they had at the end of last year, and I'm underscoring just how important he is. Like, you don't want to project too far, but he's had hamstring injuries in the past, and we kind of know what it does to the team and how much he missed when he has had that problem last year.
Yeah, you saw the value of him. He averaged 133 yards rushing per game, which had he qualified, he would have led the nation within that category. Got hurt in the Iowa game, missed the rest of the regular season, came back and went for 200 in the bowl game and won bowl MVP honors. So you can see what he can do and how often they like to use him. I think you'll probably see maybe them use a little bit less of him this year, maybe put him in different situations too. I think they would like to throw out of the backfield a little bit more. They got a guy that in Oklahoma transfer, Marcus Major, who's looked pretty good during training camp on the times we've seen him. So they do have contingency plans behind Darius, but you want everybody healthy going into the season, that's for sure.
Depth-wise at other spots, and particularly quarterback, how did you see other positions kind of shaking out as you've watched camp?
Yeah, it's you look at things. You look at the secondary is one that they're still sorting through the safety roles. Who's going to be doing what? They did get Darius Green back, and he's probably targeted to be the starter at strong safety. And then you have a mix at the free safety. Basically, you might see a little bit of Coy Parrish down the road there. It looks like they're trying to get the freshman from ESCO involved in certain things. They have him on some punt return duties. Some of it the blocking, but some he's been back there catching. He's been on punt coverage too, and he's been noticeable in the secondary at safety. Making some big plays. I think they would like to get him on the field. It's just a matter of it is difficult with a guy who didn't come in with the early enrollees in January. He came in June, so he's had a quick quick learning curve here, and hopefully he's the type of athlete that can excel. So it's if he can pick up everything scheme wise, I think you'll see a pretty good player there.
How would you evaluate the camp that Max Brosmer has had, the quarterback?
I would say what I've seen him, it hasn't been something that's jumped out and said, okay, wow, this guy is going to be outstanding. I think he can be. It's just I think they've put him in situations where they've challenged him, and I think that's a good thing. You want to see what you can get out of him, and you want to put him in positions where, okay, maybe it's you have to make a couple quick decisions. You want to see what you have completely with him, what all he can handle. I think he's when he's been good, he's been pretty good. He's had a couple interception here and there, that type of thing. But I think new system and everything. He's clearly handled all the leadership roles that they've asked him to do. So he's the driver of this team.
You did a game by game of this season a little while ago. I thought maybe we could kind of rehash a little bit of that for the podcast audience. And obviously it's an interesting start. August 29th, a couple weeks from now, a Thursday night against North Carolina, 7 p.m. Huntington Bank Stadium. No Drake May for North Carolina, which is good news for the Gophers. North Carolina was good last year. They did kind of falter a little bit at the finish, so you wonder what they've got right now. But this is kind of one of those toss-up games that's going to kind of define their season, right?
Yeah, this is an important game for the Gophers right out of the bat. Very similar to what Nebraska was for them last year. Basically, you're home against another Power Five team, and you could gauge your team against an opponent like that. Tar Heels got a really good running back in Hampton. He was pretty tough on them last year. Their quarterback probably going to be Max Johnson, the son of former Vikings quarterback Brad Johnson, who he's bounced around LSU, then Texas A&M. Now he's at North Carolina. So he's kind of it's amazing all the transfer quarterbacks across the country. It looks like 14 to 18, and then the Big Ten will be transfer guys. It's one that I'm looking forward to. Just as like a lot of people were looking forward to it last year when the Gophers went out there to see how they stack up against the Power Five team.
After that, it's a little bit more forgiving. You've got a Saturday 11 a.m. game against Rhode Island. That's one that, again, anything can happen, but you need to win that game if you are going to be a bowl eligible team. Yeah,
definitely, and that's one that maybe Max Brosmer has circled a little bit because Rhode Island beat his New Hampshire team last year in overtime. So we'll see what maybe he's got something for them this year.
Nevada after that, kind of rounding out the non-conference schedule. Another home game. It's a 2:30 start on a Saturday. Wolfpack not really successful the last couple of years, but again, this is it's a step up at least in level from the week before against Rhode Island.
Yeah, I think they have a new coach and coming off a couple 2-10 seasons. Obviously the Gophers should be able to handle them, but we've seen in the past teams can stub their toes if they don't take the opponent seriously.
Iowa is the Big Ten opener, even if all these new teams in the Big Ten, Iowa, the Big Ten opener September 21st, another home game, so 4 straight home games to start the season. You wrote that they've got a new offensive coordinator, no Brian Ferentz anymore, addition by subtraction. I would agree with that. You got Cade McNamara, Brennan Sullivan, kind of competing at quarterback. I think I read that in their, I don't know if it was their offense versus defense game or what it was like a week ago, their quarterbacks did not look good. It's still not looking good. They had some sort of awful stat line. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did. It was looking like McNamara was going to have the inside track to the job, but he did very poorly in this scrimmage, and Sullivan didn't do a ton better, but a little bit better. Sullivan's a transfer from Northwestern, McNamara transfer from Michigan. So it's they got some offensive issues. They will have a great defense, so that's the one thing you can count on from Iowa.
September 28th at Michigan, Randy. You give them a 25% win probability. That feels generous to me, but am I overrating?
Generous, yeah.
Am I overrating? Am I overrating Michigan just because of their pedigree? Or this won't be the same Michigan team, I suppose, without Harbaugh, JJ McCarthy, a bunch of other star players that are not there anymore.
Yeah, they won't be as good of an offensive team, especially than they were last year on the way to winning the national title. Their defense will be very good. 25%. That maybe that's a little bit more than a puncher's chance. Just you guess. 1 out of 4 chances. I don't know. We'll see. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, it doesn't mean you're wrong. 25% doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you're probably right if Michigan wins. But just the history of these teams. Although, as you point out, the last 3 times the Gophers have beaten the Wolverines, it has been in Michigan, 86, 2005, and 2014. So not saying there's no chance, right? It's not a zero chance.
Well, it's one of those that it's tough for them to win anywhere against Michigan, but they have had better luck there.
Well, now we're kind of back into more of that toss-up zone, right? You got
lots of those.
USC on the 5th of October. Again, probably, again, a different team. No Caleb Williams in the second straight week against a team that had a top 10 pick. Caleb Williams, number 1 pick at quarterback, that's not there anymore. So definitely a period of transition. Obviously, USC new to the Big Ten. But this is, it's got potential. This is a game that, could be a swing game in their season if they were able to win a game that there probably will be, a 5 to 7 point underdog in, if I'm kind of guessing at this point.
Yeah, USC, you look at them, they're basically I don't think people expect them to be at the level they were a couple years ago when Williams won the Heisman and things like that. But there's obviously great athletes there, really good kick returner on that team. Lincoln Riley, their offense is always really good. It's a matter of can their defense put it together. They brought over UCLA's defensive coordinator. Basically, they'll be favored against the Gophers, but it's the Gophers having home. Maybe there's a shot.
Gophers fans' dream of seeing their team play in the Rose Bowl, Randy, will be realized on October 12th. Maybe not the way that they would have hoped over the last 60 years or so, but they do play at UCLA October 12th. This has got some intrigue, not just the Rose Bowl angle, but obviously the offseason PJ Fleck rumblings that he was a candidate for the UCLA job, stayed in Minnesota. It's okay to love it in Minnesota, as we understand. What do you make of this game?
Yeah, for a while there, we were looking at, okay, which sideline is PJ going to be on for this game? But I think that the Gophers have a pretty good chance of winning out there, just because UCLA first year under new coach Sean Foster, who's the first time head coach. They've had a lot of issues. They get decent talent there. They might obviously not the recruiting level of USC. But I just think the Gophers kind of I got a feeling it's going to be kind of like a couple years back when they went out to Colorado. They'll have a good showing, a good fan following with them, and should be able to play a good game. Now, I don't think they will win 30-0 like they did at Colorado.
No,
but I expect a good showing from them out there.
Bye week, and then October 26th, home against Maryland. I mean, this is another one of those that, you've probably 6 or 7 games on the schedule where you look at, you're like, God, I don't really know. Like, could go either way. It's going to be a toss up. And again, another team that's got, departed a pretty accomplished quarterback. So what do you make of this one? This is kind of feels like one that they probably, again, should win is maybe too strong, but need to win is definitely how I would characterize
I'd agree
it.
with the need to win. Should win is a tough one. Just Maryland, Mike Loxley has slowly built that program back up. They've been playing in that Big Ten East, which has been pretty tough on a lot of teams. But they're a team that's they're becoming a bowl regular. Maybe not the biggest bowls in the world, but they're on very similar plane that the Gophers are on. That's the way I look at it. So I look at that as a toss-up.
November 2nd at Illinois. Is this the year they finally beat Brett Bielema? 0-10 against Brett Bielema, whether it's Illinois or Wisconsin.
That's a good question. I wonder. It's on the road. I think what helps is that Johnny Newton, that star defensive tackle they had that missed the first half last year's game and then just destroyed the Gophers in the second half. He's in the NFL now. I think they should have a better shot at handling the Illinois defense this year. I can see them winning there. I think to have a decent season, I think you're going to have to pull one of those type of games out on the road.
And they've just been such trouble for the Gophers lately, kind of derailing some of their seasons lately.
Yeah.
November 9th at Rutgers, again, kind of right down the middle in this one. You could go either way. What do you? It's the Greg Schiano Kirk Soraka game and the Athian Kalakmanis game. More importantly,
yeah, and then even more so, your Corey Heatherman, the Gophers defense coordinator, was Rutgers linebackers coach last year. Joe Hirasemiak, former Gophers defensive coach, is a defense coordinator at Rutgers. So it's
a lot of connections there. Jeez.
A lot of connections. Rutgers has a really good running back in Kyle Benonge. Shadow's done a pretty good job there of second go around at Rutgers. They've become respectable. They don't play the flashiest type of offense. You could say that about the Gophers too. I think that's going to be a tight game. Low scoring tight game. Could be a field goal settle in that one.
November 23rd against Penn State at Huntington Bank Stadium. First time that they will be back here since times were very good. 2019, about 5 years ago. Gophers won that game 31-26. Kind of gave everybody hope, like, hey, is this happening? Obviously, the season didn't quite end the way they wanted to, but still an 11-2 season. That was kind of the highlight game of that season. Can they beat Penn State this year?
A lot would have to go their way. They would really have to take care of the ball. They would have to basically shut down Penn State's got a nice 1-2 running game. They got a veteran quarterback in Drew Allar. I'm not going to say never, but it's a pretty tall task. Especially compared to that Gophers team from 19 that finished top 10 in the country that year. That had quite a bit of talent. I don't think this team has definitely doesn't have the talent at wide receiver that with a Tyler Johnson and Rashad Bateman. I don't think you have the playmaker in the secondary like you had in Antoine Winfield Jr. They're going to have to do it a different way if they want to pull off the upset. I'd say they're going to have to win it at the line of scrimmage.
November 29th at Wisconsin, end of the regular season at least. A lot of their seasons are defined for better or worse on whether they can beat the Badgers. They've done a better job of that lately since PJ Fleck got here. We don't know where these two teams will be when they match up on November 29th, 3 months from now, essentially. But we've got to guess that this game will have some sort of importance.
Yeah, it always has a nice ring to it with the axe on the line. Basically, and yeah, it's been going back and forth between the two teams recently. It's the Gophers have won there a couple times. Especially they had the breakthrough in 18. I guess I'd probably go Wisconsin right now if I had to pick. Just because they are home. I think they're coming off a better year than the Gophers were last year. I'm still waiting to see how good this Gophers team is. I think they'll be better than they were last year. Their record might not show a lot if they're that much better. It's a pretty tough schedule. Not that last year's wasn't, but anytime you get Michigan and Iowa back to back, that's not easy.
Yeah, I mean, no more Big Ten West this year. We've talked about that plenty. You're adding UCLA, USC to the schedule. You've got Michigan, Iowa, Penn State on the schedule. I mean, there's a lot of games where you look at it on paper, at least, and you're like, don't feel great about that. But there's a lot of opportunities there too. I feel like to feel good about this season, and to feel like there's not been a step back, even if there isn't like this big step forward. 6-6 feels kind of like the baseline to me. The not relying on the academic progress to get into a bowl game, things like that. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say if they can get to 6-6, maybe 7-5, they've done some good. I'm kind of curious to see the success they have, how they do it. Will it be Max Brosmer basically, showing them a little bit more in the passing game than they've gotten it recently? We know they can run the ball. That they've done a good job assembling talent to do that. They should have a pretty good offensive line. You look at Ariante Ersry, their right tackle, or their left tackle. He's a heck of a run blocker, especially, and he's a guy that could go first round next year.
Wow.
Quinn Carroll, they got him at guard. That's more his natural position. Should be better there than he was at the right tackle. And I really like this Greg Johnson, the sophomore center out of Prior Lake. He's won that job, and they're putting a lot of trust in him. I think if their line does well, they could it could pave the way to a pretty good season. I'm not saying 9 or 10 wins, but you get to 7 wins, you get to 8 wins. That's not a bad rebound from last year.
Yeah, well, and when they've been good, they've leaned a lot on that offensive line. I mean, even go back to Mason's best teams with Aslinger, Setterstrom. I mean, those were some pretty quality offensive lines paving the way for 200, 300-yard rushing days and, stuff like that. So, yeah, if they can be good on the line, that covers for a lot of, average play elsewhere, and that could be a pretty key factor this year. Well, we'll start to know more soon, Randy. We'll start playing the games.
We're all just really curious right now to see what this, especially with the new quarterback. It's like Christmas morning. You want to see what how well this new toy you have works.
Yes. Well, then like Chip Scoggins and I were talking about this last week when he was on. He's got less of a feel for this team than any Gophers team he's ever covered, and I think that's a pretty fair assessment for kind of where they are right now. All right, Randy. Well, appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mike.
Watch your dreams and savings grow with Royal Credit Union's 4.25% annual percentage yield 12-month certificate. Open now at any Royal office or online at rcu.org/certificate saver. Early withdrawal penalties could reduce earnings and principal. APY accurate as of 2/1/25. Insured by NCUA.
Great stuff from Randy. Appreciate him joining me on today's show. I feel like that North Carolina game on the 29th. A group of friends and I going to that game again this year. We went last year in North Carolina, reuniting again this season here in Minnesota for that game. I feel like that one's going to be a good barometer, like Randy and I talked about, for the rest of the season, right? Like it's not a must-win, make-or-break kind of game, but it is going to tell you where they stand. Another Power 5 school, another opportunity this time at home to get off to a 1-0 start. Last year, I didn't think they played poorly last year, but like Randy and I talked about, the big difference was quarterback play. North Carolina had Drake May, a top 5 NFL draft pick, and the Gophers had Ethan Kaliakmanis, who just wasn't quite ready for prime time. They've moved on now to Max Brosmer. North Carolina has a new quarterback. This one's in Minnesota. This is a real toss-up game. If last year was kind of a measuring stick game where the Gophers weren't necessarily expected to win but had a chance to win, you saw them kind of essentially be a step below North Carolina's grade last year, and a lot of that was at quarterback. Can they close that gap this year and win the first game of the season? A little less than 2 weeks away. We will find out soon. Let's finish with the cooler. A couple basketball things. The Lynx resumed play after nearly a month off for the Olympic break, picked up right where they left off. A little bit of cold shooting to start their game against the Mystics, but they rallied. They were fine. They win their first game out of the break, kind of a balanced scoring effort. Collier had 17, bunch of other players in double figures, so the Lynx kind of right back where they were before the break. Good to see them be able to pick up where they left off. And remember, going into the break, Collier's health was a concern, and of course she played in the Olympics, played really well, so good to see her back on the court with the Lynx, kind of gearing up for this stretch run. Big one next week when Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever come back to town. I believe that is next Saturday that they play, and that is also Maya Moore's jersey retirement ceremony, so that will be quite the spectacle at Target Center next Saturday, the 24th. Timberwolves, schedule release for the NBA, 18 national TV games, true national TV games. I believe it's 8 each on ESPN and TNT, and a couple of them on ABC. That is a lot. That is, close to 1/4 of their schedule this year on one of those kind of major national channels. That shows you what people think of them. That shows you kind of the face of the league that Anthony Edwards is. It shows you kind of what the league thinks of him. They're, they're playing on opening day. They play the Lakers. They're playing on Christmas against the Mavericks. Like, they are being treated, rightfully so, like one of the NBA's marquee teams that everybody wants to watch. It's earned. They went to the conference finals last year. They have one of the ascending stars in the league. They've got almost everybody back from last year's team. They've added to it in the draft. This could be an exciting year for the Wolves, but again, Minnesota teams have had a problem kind of doing it again, coming back after a successful season and doing it again. We need to see that from the Wolves this year. Can they do it again? That doesn't mean automatically going to the conference finals or more. This is a tough league. The playoffs are hard, things like that. Anything can happen once you get into the postseason, especially once you get past that first round. But can they be that team that is a top 4 contending team again? Can they kind of go through the regular season with greater expectations, with everybody knowing how good they are. That will be the story of this season, and there'll be a lot of national chances to prove it or disprove it once October rolls around. That will do it for me today. Thank you for listening all week. Great stuff coming up next week. Royce, maybe some high school content next week. We'll see about that. Lynx for sure. Until then, I am Michael Rand, back at it again on Monday.